In February 1942, British Bomber Command declared all Nazi-held industrial cities as primary bombing targets. The goal was to break the back of the German war machine by destroying its industries and demoralizing its citizenry. Around this time, Bomber Command was taking delivery of a new long-range heavy bomber called the Lancaster. She was basically a four-engine version of the twin-engine Manchester. Capitalizing on the mistakes made with its predecessor, the Lancaster proved to be an extraordinary aircraft. She had, similar to those in the famous Spitfire, she could carry over 6 tons of bombs at 275 miles per hour. The Lancaster was an agile aircraft. Pilot Jim McIntosh remembered his first flight in a Lancaster as a thrilling moment. He said, "We released the brakes, shoved the throttles full forward, and were off. The roar of the engines engulfed us, and in no time, the tail was up and she floated off the ground. She seemed to climb like a spit." The Lancaster had the range to strike targets deep in Germany. But to survive these missions, bombers needed fighter escorts for protection. Having no long-range fighters, British Bomber Command opted for flying missions under the cover of darkness and began night bombing operations. But the American 8th Air Force chose a different approach. American air strategists believed that a bomber could be sufficiently armed to protect itself from enemy fighters. They selected Boeing's B-17 and converted it into a flying fortress. She was armor-plated and filled with 13 .50 caliber machine guns. There were guns along the sides and bottom of the fuselage. There were guns in the nose, in the rear, and guns on top. Sacrificing payload for armament, the B-17 could only carry about half the bomb load of a Lancaster. But the payoff was the precision afforded by daylight bombing. On August 17, 1942, 12 B-17s flew into battle on the first all-American bombing mission over Europe. By the fall of 1943, it was clear that the heavily armed B-17 was not impregnable to enemy fighter attack. But the men of the 8th Air Force continued their missions. Survival depended on putting as many aircraft in the air as possible. More planes meant more guns protecting the formation. Safety in numbers also made them easier to find. German radar could detect the B-17s while they were still over England. Whenever possible, fighter escorts flew with the missions, but their limited range kept them from escorting the bombers all the way to the target. When the short-range fighter escorts returned to base, the Germans would scramble their fighter aircraft by the hundreds to harass the B-17s. Although she was well armed, B-17 crews had to fight desperately to stay alive. Lieutenant Harry Crosby watched helplessly as one of his formation was attacked. Ahead of us, a lone B-17 was limping along. A flight of 3 Messerschmitt swooped in and fired. Those 3 small planes kept attacking that plane. Finally, the B-17 caught on fire, turned over, spun slightly, and then burst into a huge ball of flame. Long-range P-51 Mustangs became available in December 1943 to escort the B-17s all the way to the target and back. Protected by fighters, more bombers and their crews were able to return home safely. With fewer losses, ever-increasing numbers of B-17s returned to bomb enemy targets. With bombing from the Americans by day and the British by night, Germany began to weaken from the round-the-clock attacks. City after city had been destroyed, but at great cost. During the worst of the campaign, as many as 200 planes a week were destroyed, representing the loss of 2,000 men. But if there was the slightest chance of survival, the B-17 could make it. She had a well-deserved reputation for absorbing incredible damage and still making it home. This B-17 is owned by World War II B-17 pilot David Talashay. His aircraft was built in April 1945, too late to be used in war. She's been a troop carrier, a cargo plane, and General Curtis LeMay's staff airplane. When this footage was taken, she was painted as the Memphis Belle, one of the most famous fortresses of the war.
You know, today one jet fighter will carry one pilot and carry as much bombs as this airplane did. But this airplane required two pilots, a bombardier and a navigator. Each one used a gun. And then they had 6 other crew members. They were all gunners, working out of an upper turret, lower turret, tail gun, waist guns. And they were all there as a defensive position to defend the fighter in his long mission to hit an enemy target deep in their territory against the fighters, and they sacrificed bomb load to carry more armament, more turrets, more guns, more people aboard. The worst thing about B-17, it might be by today's standards, she flies too slow or at altitude. There was openings where the guns were. It was not pressurized. It was very cold at altitude because we wore flying jackets and also had heated flying suits we plugged into the electric system. But other than the discomfort of having to wear an oxygen mask or being at cold altitude, the plane had no bad habits that I'm aware of.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification icon for the latest videos as they are released. Thanks for watching and catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.